All right, I'd like to welcome you to this edition of In the Conference Room with Mark S. Lee. I hope you're having a great day, off to a great start this week. I tell you what a great weekend from those Detroit Tigers, huh? Hey, great to see them doing well. Congratulations to the Tigers. Keep it rock and rolling. All right, my name is Mark S. Lee. I'm your host for In the Conference Room. As you know, we talk to business leaders from across the great city of Detroit, the state of Michigan, as well as across the country. I want to thank you all for joining in each and every single week. And don't forget to spread the word. And speaking of spreading the word, boy, I got to tell you, there was a lot of excitement in Detroit last week. The legendary gym, the Kronk Gym, for those of you tuning in to Detroit, you know what it is. And for those of you across the country, we're going to continue to explain to you exactly what that is. And I have two individuals who were part of a major press conference that took place last week. I had the honor of attending it. It was so much excitement, so much enthusiasm. We'll spend some time chatting about it this week in the conference room. I'm so pleased to have with me Mr. Paul Bhatti, and he's the CEO of Kronk. He's the Kronk CEO. And also Mr. John Lepak, and he is the COO for Kronk as well. John and Paul, thank you very much for joining me in the conference room.
Thank you, Mark, for having us.
Well, let's just jump right into the conversation. Kronk Gym, for those certainly in Detroit, needs no introduction. Those in the boxing community need no introduction. But we have some people tuning in may not necessarily know exactly, believe it or not, Paul, what Kronk Gym is. Let's kind of open up the conversation here. Just give us a very brief overview of Kronk Gym.
Well, Mark, I'm going to have John do that because he grew up at the Kronk Gym. He's the Detroit-based individual on the team, and I think he gives a fantastic story. So, John, if you don't mind, go ahead.
Not a problem, because I'll be passing that 1-2 punch right back off to you when it's time to talk about the business future of Kronk. So, Mark, to all the listeners out there that may not be familiar with our brand, Kronk is, and I may be a little biased when I say this, but it's without question, it's the most historic and legendary gym in the history of the sport of boxing. Our founder, the late, great Emanuel Stewart, is in the International Boxing Hall of Fame, both as a manager and a trainer. And during Emanuel's Hall of Fame career, he trained record 41 plus world champions, 6 Olympians, and hundreds of amateur champions.
And you think about the impact that Kronk has had, not only just in Detroit, across the entire boxing community, John. I mean, name some of the legendary boxers that people certainly will be aware of.
Sure. I can tell you just in my time alone, I had the distinct honor and privilege to work with fighters that Emmanuel trained that include Thomas the Hitman Hearns, Lennox Lewis, Oscar De La Hoya, the great Julio Cesar Chavez from Mexico, Graciano Raccagiani from Germany, Dennis Andres from England. It just, the list goes on and on. Kronk, again, while we're very just planted deeply in our roots in the great city of Detroit, it truly was a global brand under Emmanuel. And now with Paul's involvement, we're definitely looking to take it back there.
And Paul, when Paul, I'm sorry, my apologies, when Emmanuel passed, we obviously know he built this legendary gym, for lack of a better phrase. It kind of went in a little quiet space. I mean, it was still out there, but it got relatively quiet. Talk about for the time of the late great Emanuel Stewart's passing to today in terms of the path that Kronk Gym has taken.
Okay, as far as the path, again, I think unfortunately, when Emmanuel passed, like you said, Kronk did go through a bit of a downtime, because you can't mention Kronk without mentioning the great Emanuel Stewart. And upon Emmanuel's passing, you had some really good fighters that were still in the stable. His nephew, Javen Hill, Jonathan Banks, Theo Chambers, Andy Lee. These are just a handful of the former fighters that were mentored under Emanuel Stewart that kind of branched out, and while they still remained very loyal to the brand and represented the brand, Detroit, we kind of went through a little downtime when COVID hit. The gym was closed. Unfortunately, a flood came in after that. And we're just grateful that we had an opportunity to acquire the brand. The Stewart family is still very actively involved with us. And I think a perfect segue for me, Mark, to turn it to Paul, is that having been around the business for so many years as I was, it allowed me to see not only the successes, but a lot of areas where certain failures were. And when I met Paul, there was not only just an instant synergy, but his track record in business, from leading global companies to thousands of employees, and numbers that would surpass that of some of the big heavyweight purses that are going around today. It was just a natural fit, and I'm just very honored to have Paul as a leading partner in this rebirth.
And Paul, let's turn over to you. Talk about your role as a CEO, and you kind of talk about what does that mean, and talk about your involvement in terms of the Crown Gym.
So, John, first of all, thank you for the kind words as always. Mark, great again to be here. So, just a little bit of background on myself. Obviously, you heard me the other day. Unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to meet you personally, but born, raised in Manchester, England, came over here with an IT opportunity when I was 33, been here 18 years, been through the whole gamut of IT management leadership at varying levels and sizes of businesses. I got the opportunity after meeting John a couple of years ago to have very direct conversations with the Stewart family regarding the IP of Kronk and the trademarks. And Mark, like yourself, as a fan, and many other people that have asked me since I've been getting involved with this, what happened to Kronk? Why did it go wrong? Where did it go? Now, I'm a believer in that if you don't know the answers, keep your mouth shut. So I'm not here to judge anyone prior. I'm not here to talk anything bad about Emmanuel. All I know is what that man built at that catchment of time is special in the world of boxing. So my focus is to, well, first off, we got the deal done. We're starting to rebuild this business. Now, in the ecosystem of a business, branding is the hardest job for any entrepreneur or founder. We've got the luxury of this enormous brand that's globally recognized, that our YouTube channels, 310,000 views across 54 countries. Our socials get comments from all these fans from all over the world. So we've got the branding, but the business, we're starting relatively from the ground up. And what I mean by that is, I'm not just looking at boxing for the success and longevity of Kronk. Boxing, as John will tell you, is a very cyclic business. It can be super high rolling and great lengths and heights of success, or extremely, extremely hard. And right now, with the fighters that we've got, two excellent prospects, both pros, it's going to be 5 to 7 years until we realize some rewards from that investment into these fighters. So my job is, and the strategy for the business is, underpinned by two words: scale and longevity. Kronk is here to stay. I don't want it to disappear again into the ether. All the other four franchises, as we look out of our new gym at Brewster, they've continued and flourished for many, many years. There's no reason why Kronk shouldn't have neither. But again, I can't change the past, but I can certainly try and impact the future. So by saying that, Mark, my focus is the revenue streams outside of boxing that will always, like the flywheel, that will always be the underpin and support for what is this business called Kronk, and it's our amateurs and our pros. So merchandising, licensing, video content and distribution, franchises of gyms, licensing the brand name, which we've got a couple of really good announcements to make in the next couple of months, where we've done exactly that. So we receive revenue by selecting carefully, not just anywhere. This brand has to be treated with care. We're not just looking for companies to put the brand on. It's got to be additive to our brand. It's got to benefit us, and to the fan looking in, oh, that collaboration makes sense. Kronk is not going to do a collaboration with respect with L'Oreal. It's just not going to happen. But would it do something with sporting brands or grip brands? Absolutely. So we're picking the right brands to further the brand, to further its reach in a two-way strategy. One, for us, we've got a certain demographic of people that all know Kronk. Well, these smaller and younger organizations that are in the boxing world, they're reaching out to the team on LinkedIn because we're out there pushing the brand. They want to partner with us. For one, it legitimizes their business, but on the other hand, it helps us reach a different demographic that we can't get to on our own. So the under 30-year-olds is very, very big market for us that we're trying to penetrate. So in a nutshell, Mark, boxing is my biggest passion, and I'm very fortunate as John is to be owning the biggest brand in the world of boxing. John very much focuses on the boxing, but he supports me in the business, and vice versa. I'm more weighted towards business and come support John leading up to fight week. But ultimately, my goal and responsibility is to create revenue streams and angles that will furnish the P&L of this business to always serve our boxers. So I'm not just relying all eggs in one basket on boxing.
That's awesome. And for those of you tuning in, there was a major announcement last week, and I'm going to come back over to John to talk about that. And you're talking about branding and taking the Kronk name, the brand, to other levels in terms of revenue streams. And as he's been talking, we've been showing some pictures, certainly from some of the photos from the other day, some of the Kronk merchandise that you will see. For example, the sweater, if you will, the robe that Emmanuel Stewart rode, that he wore, for example, other pictures that you've seen at the bottom of the screen as they've been talking. John, I'm going to come back over to you and talk about the major announcement. He talks about branding, talking specifically about Paul, about branding, the Kronk name. There was a major announcement moving back into the city of Detroit. For those from across the country, obviously the Brewster Rural Recreation Center in Detroit means a lot. Talk about the move from where you were to going down to the Brewster Recreation Center. Why is that important? And also talk about the importance of Brewster to the city of Detroit.
Absolutely, Mark. And for those of you that might not be aware, and actually many people in the boxing world aren't even aware of this fact I'm about to share with our audience today. And that is that not only did Joe Louis train at the legendary Brewster Wheeler Center, but Emmanuel Stewart got his own boxing start there. So that white robe that you saw with Emmanuel's name on it and the emblem, that was Emmanuel's robe when he was an amateur champion. And so when Emmanuel went to turn pro, he was struggling with finding the right team, something that Paul and I were speaking on earlier, to make sure that our athletes have full access to all facets of the business world outside of just boxing. And to return to Detroit, to touch on that, it was a natural. The Brewster Center came available to us thanks in large part to Reverend Terrence Devison from Detroit, and as well as now Police Chief Bettison, who was the acting deputy mayor at the time. Both were very instrumental, along with Attorney Wolfgang Mueller, who's on the Athletic Commission, to helping get us in the door at the Brewster. So with that being said, it was just from there, it was a no-brainer for us. Detroit is home to Kronk. That's where our roots were originally planted. We're just glad to be home. Like Paul said, you look out the window at the gym and you're looking at the other franchises, the Pistons, the Red Wings, the Lions, the Tigers. So as the fifth franchise of Detroit, we're just very excited and happy to be coming home.
And Paul, as I come back over to the CEO, I grew up in the city. Um, Obviously, I'm a Detroiter. And I remember those classic boxing matches. I remember all of them. I remember just the closed circuit in those days. I used to go down to watch the matches and things like that on closed circuit TV way back in the day. So my question is, you touched on it earlier. Detroit has always been a legendary city. We're a legendary city, hands down, no question about that. Always been a legendary city in boxing. The Joe Lewis's of the world and everybody else from this, Thomas Hitman Hearns and Milton McCrory, Elmer Kinsey. The list goes on and on. So, what is your vision in terms of now that, for example, Little LCAs, Little Caesars Arena, with all these stadiums in the same area, in terms of getting Detroit back into the spotlight? What is the plan if there's one? What is the plan of getting Detroit back in that spotlight, getting Kronk elevated in conjunction with the city of Detroit to become that national boxing mecca that it once was and hopes to become again? Paul, I'll turn over to you for that conversation.
I just think it's a matter of time. I mean, let's just look at the interest garnered from that press conference. From a personal perspective, that was just a massive event for us as a team. For me personally, incredible event. So if I go back to what I said before in the business, and if I forget the brand for a moment and think that we've been working hard on this for 1 year, and imagine we had no name, just remove that for a minute. I just kicked off proceedings with the mayor of Detroit and the chief of police, and Mary Sheffield there, and all the press, sports stars, celebrities for our business. That's in a year. Now that's based on a lot what's gone on, but we've been the voices now of Kronk, and John and I will become that face to spearhead this back. Now I have to lean back to John, and I'll just talk about his what he's done in the fight game. He's promoted, he's advised, he's built champions. Him and his former partner, a gentleman called Bill Kazerski, had some of the most successful fights in Detroit for a 10-year span. Fight nights at the Palace, butts on seats, 18,000 on a Tuesday night. We can replicate that. Now, we're not in the promotional business. We advise fighters inside and out of the ring, but we're tied to many, many promoters that all want to do business with Kronk. So our fighters, as of now, don't have a promotional contract. So we're promoter agnostic. So John's finding his feet back in this game again after a bit of a hiatus. And now he's finding the right promoters. And each promotion and each fight we have, we're learning. We'll be developing amateur talent. More and more pros will want to come to us. We've been hit up multiple times since the press conference by existing pros. But again, just like the brands we deal with, we're going to be extremely selective on where we go with that. And like I said, Mark, a matter of time, Kronk will be featuring on major cards all over the world.
Mm.
To touch on that and take it
Yes.
over, Mark,
Sure.
I worked on, as Paul said, gosh, I think I counted in total actual fights in the ring over 250, and many of them were in the heart of the city. We've done Hart Plaza back in the day, back when Shane Park was known as Shane Park. We did fights outdoors there. The legendary Joe Louis Arena, Cobo Hall, you name it. Fox Theater, we promoted an HBO fight on, the Old State Theater. So many of those historic venues in the great city. It's just awesome to be back again in the heart of the pulse of the great city of Detroit. And as Paul said, it's going to take a few years, as our young professionals start to develop. But it starts with the amateurs. We want to make sure that we get the kids in the gym, get them off the street, give them a safe place to come after school. We plan on working closely with Detroit PAL to cross over. If some kids want to maybe go play baseball or basketball, we can work with PAL on that. But it's just great to be back in the city, Mark. And like Paul said, we do want to bring back championships to this great fight town, both amateur and professional.
As we wrap up, I want to ask you, when will the move be official in terms of when will Rooster be ready for the boxers to come down? When will you officially be moving in? Kind of talk about the timeline.
We're looking around end of August. So we're going with the timeline from the construction crew. Must give a shout out to them. They made that place extremely ready for us, where John and I were there 2 days prior. You wouldn't have believed how it looked, but they cleaned it up as best they could, and it was a very presentable effort. So we're working with a great team, and our project manager that we're working with, he's confident we should be up and running by end of August. As we all know, with personal projects with construction and business ones, they can flex, but hopefully we flex a bit sooner. But we're saying end of August.
Well, last question is, as this whole progression is taking place, what is the website that people can just go back and get more information about Kronk? If they want to make a donation, excuse me, anything they want to know more about the organization, the website, please.
It's Kronk.com, real simple. All our socials are on there. If you go to the bottom of the Kronk.com page, you'll see all the socials, and you can contact us via those channels 24/7.
John Lepak and Paul Bhatti, I want to thank you both for joining me in the conference room. As a Detroiter, and as I was sitting there the other day, excuse me, I was truly humbled and honored to be within presence of greatness, and I mean that. For somebody who's from this city, Kronk means a great deal. And to see Emanuel Stewart's family there and everybody else, obviously I know Todd Benson, the chief of police, very well, and the other folks who were there. It's just, let me just give you a pat on my heart. This is awesome for somebody like me who's a native here. And thank you very much for joining me in the conference room.
Well, Mark, as a kid from the West Side, Michigan Avenue,
West Side,
Michigan and Illinois. All right, Michigan and Illinois here. So, Mark, I share those feelings with you. And as my brother Ty Mopkins said, we've adopted Paul, so he's one of us now.
He's one of us now. He's one of us. And for all, and for all of you tuning in, hey, as an aside, for all of you tuning in, this weekend the Detroit Tigers will be hosting, it's called Black in Baseball, Negro Leagues Weekend. I've been fortunate to host and MC the Q&A that takes place at Comerica Park. So come on down and check me out this Saturday. This Saturday, I will be at Comerica Park hosting a Q&A with the legendary former Negro Leagues Weekend. It's now been rebranded Black in Detroit. And while you're there, support Detroit Tigers, folks. If you're there, please stop by and say hello to me. I look forward to seeing you. It's always a very popular event. All right, I want you all to go out, make it a great day, make it a great week. Check us. We'll check you out next time in the conference with Mark S. Lee. And we appreciate you. And don't forget to subscribe as you're checking out this interview. Have a great day, everyone. Talk to you soon. There's that punch. All right.